Can everybody hear me? Yes, good? Well, first of all, everybody's like, want to know, what is the Oregon Exploitation Team? I can tell you, we're not a team that exploits children. We actually combat children. I know it sounds really bad. People see that all the time and think, oh my gosh, they're a team that exploits children. That is not what happens with us. I promise you, we actually combat child exploitation in the Valley. But people want to know what the Southern Oregon Child Exploitation Team is. It's a team that's composed of several law enforcement agencies here in the Valley, in Jackson and Josephine County. Currently, we have one full-time investigator from Homeland Security and one full-time investigator from Homeland Security Investigations. We also have some part-time assistants with Oregon State Police and the Medford Police Department. And then the crucial part for us as well is the attorneys, the ones that we are able to help us put these people in jail and hold people accountable. It's a team effort, and without the Jackson County District Attorney's Office and the Josephine County District Attorney's Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office, we would not be able to be successful. We would just be making arrests and they'd be getting right out. But without the attorneys and the prosecutor's office, we're able to hold these people accountable and send them to jail. So the other question is, well, what do you do? Well, I can tell you what we do currently is we are investigating people that are trading child pornography on the internet. So if somebody's sending an image on Facebook or Google or anything, we get notified by the service provider and we continue and start our investigation at that point. We also, if we receive images from an individual directly to us in an undercover capacity, we are serving warrants, taking their devices, doing sex offender sweeps, arresting everybody up, and putting them in jail for what they're doing. Currently, we have seized over 300 computer devices in the last 3 years, and we've seized and taken over 400,000 images of child pornography off the streets. If you put that into context, that's 2 pallets. Thank you. That's 2 pallets of paper. We're finding 1 out of 4 individuals that we arrest for trading child pornography on the internet have a live victim as well. Not only are we investigating people for trading child pornography, but we're going undercover as children, as bad dads, bad moms, or whatever, trying to have people come and have sexual contact with their children. During those operations, we're finding 45% of those individuals that are coming from here locally, all the way from all over the United States that have come here and victimized children. We're finding about 45% of them have additional victims that were not reported and or they're going to go victimize next. So that's a little bit of what we do.
So just a warning that the cases that we'll be discussing and the stats we'll be given, they're very, very negative. They're the worst cases that you can think of as a parent, as an educator, as a supporter. So if you need to take a moment to take a deep breath, if you need to, step out of the room, absolutely understandable. But also a warning after watching this, please don't go home and take all of your kids' devices. Please don't immediately jump to that. Go ahead. So the reason this kind of started is because Oregon has a very large sex offender problem. According to the 2023 National Sex Offender Registry stats, out of every 100,000 residents, we have 772 registered sex offenders. So that's what kind of motivated this team and also helps you see that this problem is local. It's national, but it's also very local.
So how do you notify, or how do you know who a sex offender is in our community? Well, we have a video here to kind of help you figure out how we can identify who our sex offenders are.
When I was just starting out, it was harder. You really had to keep things hush-hush. But then the internet came along, and everything changed. Now we hide in plain sight and share all kinds of things. We review, rate, make recommendations, just like anything else out there. Pre-internet, you know how hard it was to pretend to be a 9-year-old girl? Now I just roll up looking like their BFF. And the best part, the only people who could stop me pretend I don't exist. You ask me, there's never been a better time to be a monster.
That video really rings true. We do not know who these people are. They are intermixed in every fabric of our community. Many years that we've been investigating these cases, we've investigated numerous public figures in our community. We've investigated police officers, unfortunately, teachers. It's everywhere. You cannot see who these people are. And a prime example here is a local case study that we worked on. Miss Lester was a case that we investigated back in 2020. She was new to our area and started volunteering at a local school. And during that time, we got a cyber tip. It was actually from a service provider who reported one image of child pornography being traded on the internet. And this is the impact of just one image. Everybody's like, well, what's one image? What's the big deal? Well, one image could be the life of a child, right? We don't know who that child is. And I can go down a whole gamut on that one. But it was one image of a child under 10 years of age, and they were engaging in sexual activity. I'm not going to talk about what that was, but it was pretty graphic in detail what that was happening with the child. So we ended up starting the investigation. We wrote search warrants, subpoenas, and we were able to identify our suspect as Miss Kayla Lester. We knew that she was a volunteer at school, and we needed to get to her quick to make sure that she wasn't victimizing kids at school or what was going on with that. We only had information at that point that she lived with her parents, and that was it. We served a warrant on her residence. We had her come to the door. We asked anybody else here. She's like, well, my 8-year-old daughter's in the back room. We call out to the back room, have her come out, and immediately we could see that the 8-year-old daughter was possibly the same child that was in the image. She looked very familiar to her. We removed the child. We interviewed Miss Lester. She's like, I've never done anything to my child. She denied everything. Unfortunately, with the laws in the state of Oregon, we're not able to go through the devices right away. We have to apply for a separate search warrant. And then after we got into the devices, we found that she was trafficking her child out to other people. These are actually the texts that she was sending and exchanging with other people. She wanted to meet with people to have sexual contact with them, to include having sexual contact with her daughter as well. We knew it was her daughter being trafficked because the pictures in the photographs that she was exchanging with the individuals, it was her daughter. It was in their residence. It was the clothes that she was wearing. We were able to determine and prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it was her. Even after we interviewed the child, she made no disclosure. Even when we showed her pictures of herself, she made no disclosure of abuse. She did not want to disclose. And that's okay. We don't expect everybody to tell their story. When they're ready to tell the story, we want them to tell the story when they're ready to do so. But we were able to put that to an end because of the fact that we were able to go investigate one image of child pornography. She has since now pled guilty, and she's now serving 13 years in prison, and she'll have 20 years of supervision through the federal system. But how does exploitation work on the internet? Like, it happens everywhere. How does it exactly work? And here's a video to kind of explain that.
Dinner in 5 minutes, Evie.
Don't be shy. You look so pretty in your picture, Evie. Just want to see what you've got under there. Just for me.
Dinner's ready.
Okay, Mum.
Girls are increasingly being groomed by adults to create sexually explicit images and videos. Make sure your home doesn't have an open door to child sexual abusers. Talk to your child. Agree boundaries and set device controls together. Visit talk.iwf.org.uk for guidance.
That video is exactly how it works. I can tell you what happens every day. I go undercover almost weekly, and 5 to 10 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes, I'm talking to 40 individuals that believe that I'm a minor female or a minor male, and they're immediately trying to groom me to get me to do sexual things for them on the internet. We worry about locking our doors. We worry about making sure the house is secure before we go to bed at night. But I'm telling you, our devices, our gateways, we never lock the devices, and they're in there. And you can be talking to that many people that quick. I'm sorry, it went too fast. How does it happen? Well, the first thing is, it doesn't really matter where you go on the internet anymore. These individuals that are seeking and trying to target your children are going to go where the kids are at. They are interested in kids. They want to abuse kids. They are going to go where your kids are at. They know where the kids are at. They're going to go to the gaming platforms. They're going to go to the chatting platforms where they're going to be, and they're going to immediately try to build a relationship with them. As they go through the process, they're going to try to move them to different apps that they know that are not law enforcement friendly, and be able to help them cover their tracks. But they're going to start that grooming process. What they do is when they get into the grooming process, they're going to go ahead and they're going to continue to talk to them and get them to start moving to the process of where they want to talk sexual stuff and get stuff from them. They're going to start really common just stuff, try to find interests that the kids are interested in. It doesn't matter what those interests are. That perpetrator is going to have the same interest because they want to build a rapport with those kids. They're going to talk just generically about things. They're going to be like, hey, what did you wear today at school? Oh, you wearing that? You weren't wearing, and then the kid will reply, well, yeah, I was wearing a shirt and jeans. Oh, no underwear? He. They're going to ask them what kind of bra size they have, what size their breasts are, what kind of a lot of questions about their hygiene that no normal person would do in a normal setting. They're going to actually try to take their family away from them by isolating from their family. Let's keep our relationship secret. Don't tell anybody about our secret. They're going to try to isolate them. Your parents don't understand you. These are the things that I want to talk to you about. We understand each other. They're going to try to groom them and try to build a rapport with them and isolate them from people that they trust. The really majority of these people are trying to get child sex abuse material out of these kids for their own sexual gratification, and they're going to try to take that material and trade it with other individuals to be able to get additional images. There are the types out there that will do the financial gain, and those are mostly from overseas individuals that are from Africa and the Middle East and so forth, where they're trying to exploit kids. Once they get those images of their genitalia or whatever, then they're going to exploit them for financial gain, and that's what their main goal is. There are the individuals that are trying to exploit children online sexually so that they can come and meet those children. It's statistically low, but it does happen. Most people think they're safe behind the internet and behind their computer screen, and they don't want to take the risk of actually going out and meeting kids, but they do go out there and meet them. But the majority of the time, they're going to want to try to get images of them and then coerce them into doing additional things, putting on shows for them, doing additional sexual stuff. And so it all starts about the grooming and building a rapport with them, moving the process on and getting their CSAM material. Once they get that, then the sextortion stuff begins. And I think this is a good video to explain how that works.
Hey, Zach. It's me. I can't stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I wanted to give you something special. Who are you? Why are you doing this?
This happens every day in Southern Oregon. I can tell you about one case in particular in 2020. This case is with Michael Ferris. This case came in. The victim was a local survivor in a very small community in Jackson County. Probably not even the size of a town. That's probably a very small town out in a rural area. So it's not just the big cities, it's the small towns everywhere this happens at. The individual reached out to the victim on Facebook. He said his name was Sammy Gray. Well, the victim thought that this Sammy Gray was her friend named Sammy at her school, and they started to communicate with each other. The individual said, looking for friends, how old are you? No matter what this individual did, no matter what age the victim told them, he was the same age as them and was looking for friends. He would communicate with this juvenile and said, hey, do you have any brothers and sisters? He had different tactics of trying to harm these kids. And he asked him if he had any younger brothers and sisters. And the victim said, I have a younger brother. And the suspect says, oh, isn't it annoying when your brother comes into the bathroom and when you're changing? The juvenile said, yes, it is very annoying. And the suspect's like, I'm going to make that stop for you. Don't worry about it. It's going to end. And the child said, well, how's that going to happen? And he's like, I'm going to call the authorities and I'm going to have your brother removed and you'll never see him again. Well, the 16-year-old female was like, I don't want my brother removed. I love him. It's annoying when he comes in, but please don't take my brother away. At which point he's like, I won't do it unless you send me nude images of yourself. She ends up doing it to try to protect her brother, at which point the conversation turns into a coercive conversation. Photos aren't good enough. You need to have more light. Nope, wrong angle. You need to do it in this angle. Didn't see your face in that picture. You need to have a picture of your face. You weren't smiling in those pictures. And it went on and on from there. This happened in less than an hour time frame with this juvenile. Luckily, her brother heard her upset, crying, told her mom. Mom found the device and took the device and reported it to law enforcement. We started our investigation and we went through the process and we ended up writing search warrants for the Facebook accounts. We found in a 2-month time, he communicated with just under 1,900 juvenile females throughout the United States and Canada. Of those, most of those girls did not get victimized, thankfully, because he focused on other girls that he were able to victimize. And we found that in that time, there was an additional 27 additional victims throughout the United States. You can see a map here. Those are all the states and provinces that this guy victimized somebody in a 2-month time frame. Those are some of, here's some of the messages that he had and he would communicate with them. Obviously, we blacked out the victims' names to protect their identity. But not only did he use the little brother story, but he would also use his stories of like, I'm law enforcement. I see your images on the internet. I need to take them down, but I have to prove that they're yours. Please send me your nude images. Juveniles would do it. He would also pose as somebody that he was also the same age as them. I'm a victim of sex abuse. And he would get these young girls to tell him, I was also a victim of sex abuse. And he would tell them, I can tell you why you're a victim of sex abuse, but I need to see the pictures of your breasts because the size of your nipples will determine why you're a victim of sex abuse. And they would do it, and then he would coerce them into do these sexual acts. He would also talk to kids that had cancer and were going through treatment, and he would say, I can tell you why you have cancer. Same method, they would do it. And at that point, once he had those images, he would coerce them into doing several different things. He would have them do shows, have sexual contact with their animals in the home, with their parent, with their siblings, and so forth. One individual child that he victimized, she was talking about she was currently being abused by her father, and he said he was going to report it to the authorities, and she's like, please don't report it to my authorities because he's the only provider for my family. We're dependent on the money that he provides, and then he would coerce her to basically record herself having sexual contact with her father and record it for himself. As we continue with the investigation, we found that he was out of Illinois in the city called Mill Shoals, and that is probably a small town. Nobody knows where it's at, no law enforcement. We tried to work with the local authorities out there. They didn't want to help. They were like, this is nothing, we don't know what to do. You need to call somebody else. Everybody we called said, we cannot help you. And this is why we have a task force and we're able to partner with our federal partners because the federal government was able to assist us. Homeland Security paid for us to go out there, seize his electronics, and bring him back and hold this person accountable. Because out of everywhere else, without the federal partners, I don't know if we would have had a successful prosecution because the local authorities did not have the resources to help us even when we tried to work it on the state level here. When we seized his devices, we found that during the time that we were trying to get out there, he victimized about another 30 individual girls with another account doing the same thing. He denied everything. He was arrested, charged. We went to trial on this. He fought all the way through. We fought with the court system. He won every appeal, every motion that he fought was given in his favor. When we were in trial, the judge not once favored in the prosecution's side on any objections. Luckily, he was found guilty, and he will serve 75 years in prison because really doesn't have anything to appeal on because he won everything at that point. He's a prime example. I wish I could bring other local cases in. Unfortunately, these cases take a lot of time. This happens every day. This is not the only person. We have local people that do the same thing and the same tactics that this individual does. But this does have a big impact on our children in our community. And I can talk all day long about how it is, but I think it's most important that I tell you about Amanda Todd's story. Amanda Todd, she was in 10th grade at the time. Oh, I'm sorry, in 2010, she was just starting to go into high school. She had just moved in with her father, and she started to be talking to people online because she didn't really have any friends. She was new to the area. And she ended up meeting an individual online who extorted her just like Mr. Ferris did. After this individual, when she wouldn't do what he wanted, he would actually share her images with her schoolmates, and she would get bullied and made fun at school. They moved schools, and then he would follow her and basically would send her nudes to all of her new schoolmates at her new school. They reported to the authorities, and the authorities said at the time, there's nothing we can do about it. I'm sorry, but we don't know how to track people on the internet. She ended up keep getting bullied at school, and she kept on being exploited by that same individual. Her dad and her ended up moving to a new home, sold their home, new school district, changed everything. And this individual continued to follow her and exploit her, and all the kids in her school would bully her. And this is her story. So I can tell you, Amanda's story is impactful. It reaches all of us. It's not just her, it's everybody, even kids in our own community. Unfortunately, a month after Amanda posted this, she committed suicide. Due to her suicide and her death, the local authorities in Canada dedicated 20 full-time investigators to investigate the bullying and why there wasn't any action taken on this individual. The good news is they did find the individual out of the Netherlands, and they found that he was victimizing kids all over the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. They arrested him. He got 11 to 12 years of prison in the Netherlands, and then 13 years in prison in Canada. Her story's not alone. I can tell you, in Rogue Valley here, I've had so many survivors. I can't count on how many survivors we work with, and most of them will run away to drugs, alcohol, and I've even had survivors commit suicide and die in our own area. I would recommend reading her story, getting to know more about her story and stuff like that. I'll stop being the doom and gloom, and Sarah's going to talk about the good stuff about how we can protect ourselves.
All right, everyone, I think we all need a little bit of a deep breath and a shakeout. That sadly is the truth of what this work is. And you're entitled to your feelings. You're entitled to your anger. You're entitled to your fear. It's horrific. But sadly, as Steve said, this is way too common. It's very, very common. So the first thing you need to know to protect yourself, your children, your family, is to know that once something is on the internet, it is nearly impossible to take it off. So just be aware of that and know that that's there, and anything that you're experiencing, you probably aren't the only person who's experienced it. So if you notice your children having an experience like this where they're being sextorted, immediately stop communicating with the suspect and block the user, and then save all the evidence you can. The pictures, the text messages, the username, anything you can, save it. Teach your children some of the grooming tactics. Let them know that this is out there. I know that so many people want to keep the innocence of their children, but sadly this is happening more and more common and at younger and younger ages. In our last op that we just did recently, even though as the press release said, we had 7 arrests, we interacted with over 40 individuals, and a lot of them didn't reach the threshold of crimes, but they were communicating with who they thought were underage children, and they knew that these were underage children. So obviously, it is out there. So teach them grooming behaviors. When they're on these gaming platforms, when they're on these social media platforms, Also look at the warning signs of someone wanting them to leave to another platform that is more anonymous, that can't be tracked, and that can't be subpoenaed. And also have a very open communication with your children. Let them know what good secrets are, what bad secrets are. Let them know that really it's shame and fear that keep this going, that keeping it in the dark is not helping, and keeping it secret and shameful, it doesn't help them and it doesn't help us as a community. So there's a lot of warning signs, and they can be varied, and especially with the age of your children, it can be one thing or it can be another. But a lot of the things that we see are changes in their connection with their devices. Did they go from using it a couple of hours to using it constantly at night when they take it in the bathroom, they take it with them when they're having dinner? Are they super connected to it? Are they afraid when you warn them that, you know what, you've had too much device time, I'm gonna take it away? Are they having more than a normal response to not having that device? Are you noticing issues with their relationship with their friends and their family? Are they having issues with those that are normally who they are close to, their hobbies? Are they no longer interested in a sport? Are they no longer interested in whatever entertainment that they go to? Are you noticing them isolating themselves completely, that they have shut off completely? I know teenagers aren't super open anyway, but any relationships that they do have, are they shutting off? Are they becoming more silent? Are you noticing weight gain or weight loss in excess? Are you noticing changes in dress beyond them trying to learn and explore themselves? Are they getting random gifts, new things that you're like, where on earth did that come from? Do they have multiple devices? Do they have multiple screen names, usernames on all sorts of different platforms? It all comes down to, do you know your children, or the people around your children, or if you're an educator, your students, you tend to know them so much better than so many. So just being aware of these changes and what are the normal developmental changes and which ones are more severe. And if you believe that you're seeing an exploited individual, please, please, please believe them. It takes so much to come forward and say that they are being victimized in one way or the other. And so often we hear about female victims. We know that there are also male victims, but there's even more of a stigma of not coming forward with that. So just please, please, please believe them. Don't be angry that they have chosen to go on these platforms, or that they're been curious and made common mistakes that are out there. Also, don't engage who this possible offender is. Don't get angry and message that you're gonna go over there and whatever. Don't engage with them. And again, preserve that evidence. Block that person. Stop that account, but again, take screenshots, write down everything you know, time date stamps, anything that can be helpful. And then contact law enforcement. Especially locally here, there is this team. We know what tools can be used, and we're here to help those victims. Also, as we're seeing now, there's so many different community partners that are here to help victims and survivors, to help them see that they are not alone, that they are not, this sounds weird, but they're not unique in this type of victimization, that it is all too common. So knowing that they have a community, and that even though something horrific may have happened to them, and maybe some intimate image or something very vulnerable is out there on the internet, they're not alone, and they're not the only one who's had this experience, and that life is still worth living, and there are still people that love them. And also just to know that the victims are not in trouble, that these exploited individuals, they're not in trouble with law enforcement. There's no charges for them. They are in no way to blame or put any fingers pointed at them. So I think a lot of the tools that have been written down to protect yourself and your children, like it comes down to communication with your kids. Let them know that there is a problem, that when they're out on social media, and it's not going anywhere, social media is not gonna just disappear, but to let them know that communication is the key, that I know you're gonna be on your phone. I know that we're all pretty married to our phones. We're all within feet of our phones. But knowing when it is appropriate phone time, if there's a family plan of, at dinners we put our phones in the middle of the table so that we can have family time. Or when we're out with friends, have them make a pact of like, we're gonna be out together and have contact and not be on our phones. And knowing that we're going to have check-ins with our phones. Privatizing our accounts in the App Store and having an agreement with them that, you know what, I'm going to be here to help have a password protected for your app. It's not that I don't trust you, and it's not that I'm trying to keep anything secret, but we're here to help you, and we're here to keep things safe. Another one is to, let's see, where am I at? My brain's just wandering. Turn off location services. That is a huge one. We give away so much of our own privacy through location services. When you tag where you're at, when your children show the front of your house, when they share all of their favorite things on social media that makes it easier for them to be identified. And sadly, parents are just as guilty of that when they do their child's first day of school. This is their favorite thing, this is their favorite color, this is what they want to be when they grow up. It's cute and adorable and I love it, but it also is giving access to would-be offenders to know more about your children and to gain their trust. So it's all about making that agreement. Also on these gaming platforms, letting them know that they're allowed to have friends that you know and they know. So not having strangers that they can communicate on these apps, because that is becoming more and more prevalent of them being on this gaming platform and then getting them to go talk somewhere else where you are unaware and where they are vulnerable. So making that agreement of, hey, you can have this gaming app and we can play during these times, but we have to know your friends. We have to know that they're real people, or they're people you go to school with, or they're people with your hobbies. Also, just let them know that everything they do online is permanent. And I don't know about you, but 10 years ago on Facebook, I'm kind of embarrassed of the stuff that I posted. So it's completely common to look back and go, ooh, that's a little awkward, and to let your kids know that that's totally fine. We're all learning in this new and digital environment that we're gonna be weirdos at some point or another. We're gonna show our vulnerabilities, and to let them know that there is no shame in that, because I feel like shame is such a key indicator for helping them become more vulnerable. And don't let them carry that shame for making mistakes or for being embarrassing, because they don't need to be embarrassed. And let's see. And also, if and when something does happen, don't immediately delete it. Please save it and preserve it for evidence. Criminals can be smart, but there are more and more tools for us to help identify them and get them. So definitely, it all comes down to communication and community and knowing your children and seeing who they are as they develop and helping them have a more confident experience online. Again, don't be that parent that's like, we're taking your phone, you're not getting any devices, that's it, we're done. Because that'll just shame them even more and make them feel isolated. There has to be a healthy way to interact with devices and phones as a part of your family and community life, because they are here to stay. And finally, some of the resources that I think are very helpful for parents and teachers and community members: the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC. Law enforcement loves a good acronym. It is incredible. They deal in helping find missing children, but another whole element of what they're going into is exploited children in these images that are flagged as CSAM. They have a wonderful tool for parents and for educators. It's called NetSmarts, and it has videos for each age range of children to see what healthy technology usage is. And they do it in lovely videos. They help them see. I think that sextortion video of that girl in the tank top came from NetSmarts, and it helps them see that they're not the only person, and also some tools and tricks for families to put in place so that they can be safe as a family and safe as a community. So I'll leave that up there, but that is one of our final slides. We did leave some available time for questions if anyone has, and I believe we are still running very good on time according to this clock. So if there are any questions, we would love to answer them here, or if you don't feel comfortable doing, oh, yes?
I was just wondering if you guys do education.
So far, we haven't done any education in the schools, or I'm not aware of it, no.
No, we're not, no.
I don't think we've been asked to do anything in the schools.
There's another question back there.
When you got the National Center for Exploited Children, my question is,
Please repeat the question.
The gentleman was asking if you are noticing that there's children that are possibly missing from other countries. Where would you go to look into that or to report that?
I don't know. That's a good question. We normally work with the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and then we will, for locally, if we get a missing person report, it doesn't matter where they live. So if you know or get information of a missing child, any law enforcement agency is supposed to take that report right then and there. And then they forward it to the appropriate law enforcement agency, and then they corroborate with NECMEC. But I don't know. I know every country has their own reporting system and all their own systems like NECMEC, but I don't know who the other countries are. National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. So that's NECMEC is an acronym for National Center of Missing Children.
Luckily, they've made their website easier. It's missingkids.org. So that is a little bit easier than NECMEC. I'm sorry, we had one there and then that over there.
Online, like Facebook and other
20 minutes.
children-friendly sites. I mean, do they monitor? Do they send? Are they cooperating? It seems like it would be pretty simple for them to monitor child activity and.
So I was making sure we had enough time. I want to make sure I understand your question. So you're asking, does the online service providers require to make reports to when it's being transferred? So I can tell you there is a national law. So if any time there's an image being traded on the internet or any child being exploited on the internet, they're required by law to make a report to the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. And what happens is they get the report from those service providers, they get the data, and they send it to us, and then they figure out where it is in the United States, and that's how they investigate it. There's different ways they do that, but they are required to do it by law. Some are very cooperative with law enforcement, and some do not cooperate with law enforcement. It just depends on the service provider.
And also, I think a lot of these social media companies don't have a lot of dedicated bodies for that. So I think a lot of it comes down to the users flagging anything they see as suspicious or as inappropriate. And then from there, it can be flagged.
I think we had a question back here.
Yeah, there was one back there.
Yeah, I have a question. Are there specific communication platforms that are problematic or unsafe, or platforms that you wish parents would just see that as a red flag to not have their kids on?
It doesn't matter what platform. I'm sure everybody heard that. It doesn't matter what platform you're on. There's people on there trying to exploit children. I cannot give an opinion on what platforms to use. I'm a government employee, and I am not allowed to give recommendations and non-recommendations. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question. But I can tell you every platform, there are perpetrators on those platforms, especially where kids go.
Hi, thank you, Detective, for your presentation. What I'd like to know is, what would you change? If you could change something in our system, whether it's making the platforms liable if these photos appear on them, or if it's something in our legal system, if you had a wish list, what would you change to take a big bite out of this?
Yeah.
Thank you for the compliment. Yeah, there's a lot of things I'd like to change in my own personal opinion, but I don't think I could give those being in the position that I'm in. So, but it's a good question. If I could change anything, I would like the service providers to help out more sometimes.
How about liability? Liability fixes a lot of things in my experience.
I think liability would be good. So I don't know. I'm not a big expert in this, and I could be off base on this. I can tell you, I wonder if the service providers give us the data that they're supposed to be giving us and the data that we're asking for. I believe that most of these service providers do care about children and they do want to combat it. But I don't know how you find out if they're really giving us the proper data all the time. I don't know. I have never done that research. I've just my own personal experiences. But yeah, I don't know how to answer that question.
I might get in a little bit of trouble, but I think one of the biggest issues we've got is that so much of these providers are now creating anonymous platforms. So we don't have a place to subpoena or records to maintain because they're not keeping them anymore. So that, I think, is a problem, is that the retention periods are getting smaller, and as these investigations are quite long, it's getting harder and harder when the window of when we can get records is diminishing. Sorry.
I'd say as organizer, I think we're changing things right now by raising the awareness in this room. Here's Tina.
Thank you. You talked about one of the things is that perpetrators will move individuals from one platform to another. As a person who answers a hotline, I've gotten several calls where individuals say, oh, they moved me from Facebook to Snapchat. What is the most common platform that you know of that individuals are moving victims from one platform to another?
I would love to answer that question. I'll give you that answer, person to person. I'm not going to give it out now because I know that people will watch this and view this.
True.
And if I'm a perpetrator and I see that, I'm going to go to that platform. And I don't want to give that platform out to somebody that doesn't know that platform yet. But I can tell you, most of the platforms that your kids are using are safe platforms. They care about your kids. They are trying to protect their kids, and they're making reports. I think it's important to make sure that you tell your kids, do not move to other platforms you're not familiar with or you're not aware of, and don't be making those changes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming right over here.
He's bringing the microphone.
Stand up, please.
In the case of Amanda Todd, what strikes me is part of why she ended her life is why are the other kids so incredibly cruel? All of a sudden, just boom, they're on her. What's up with that?
That is a very good question. If anybody figures that out, let me know. I have done child sex abuse cases for almost 12 years now. And when I started to do this job, I wanted to figure out why people wanted to harm children. I gave up. I couldn't figure it out. I mean, I just can't put myself in that position. I don't know why it happens. That's a good question. If you can figure that question out, please let me know. We could be millionaires together because I think we could be rich. I think it's also, it's the adolescence parts. Kids want to be belonging. They want to be important. But the reason down deep, I don't know. But I think most kids want to feel important and they want to be part of the clique and part of the group and stuff like that. I think it has a lot of things to do with it. But I don't know the core value of that. That's a good question, though.
I've been in education for over 30 years, specifically special education. I'm a consultant working with families and students to ensure that students with disabilities are receiving free and appropriate education. So my question is, are there any legal protections for individuals that are over 18, but perhaps developmentally much lower than 18? Low adaptive skills, low functional skills, low cognitive, intellectual disabilities, autism, etc. So are there any extra protections for that population?
I know there's some, like, for sentencing parts of, like, how that all works, but I don't know. That would be a question for a prosecutor. But if you victimize that group of our society, there are enhancements and stuff like that. But I don't know how that works, to be honest with you. That's an attorney question. They know all the ins and outs of that stuff. We're just trying to gather the facts and then give it to them, and then they move forward with it. But that's a good question.
In terms of your surveillance piece, there's no way to. So when you're providing surveillance and you're monitoring, messaging and internet activity with people under 18, there's no way to note that some of those people that are being victimized are basically children, but they're over 18.
I don't know if I understand the question.
So you were describing the ways that you can monitor the messages, the pictures, et cetera, and specifically for individuals who are under 18. Correct?
Correct. The online service providers will do that. So if they know that it's a child, or they know, for example, when images of child pornography being traded on the internet, what they have is the photo DNA. They call it a hash value. And basically, you have a better chance of having two people having the same DNA than you do having two photos. And so they take that hash value, and anytime that image is traded on the internet, it'll flag that hash value and be reported immediately. And the other way is, when service providers know that the kids are under 18 because they put on their accounts that they're under 18 and there's certain things that are being said, it flags it and then they report it. As in regards to people with disabilities and so forth like that, I don't know if they have any of that stuff.
So service providers are looking at what the content is in terms of age, but they have no idea that, say, an 18-year-old with an intellectual disability is somebody who would fall into the same category as being vulnerable, such as a child.
I don't know that. These are very good questions.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is, if there's so much prolific activity of men like the people that you showed cases of, if a family has a child who is experiencing this and they do all of the right things, and then they go to their local law enforcement, one thing I heard you say was, one particular county said, like, yeah, we're not equipped to handle that. Do you feel confident that if families started doing this as instructed, that there would be law enforcement resources, or would they just become one of the many cases? And if so, how would law enforcement choose which cases, because you said they're so time intensive, how would law enforcement choose which ones to take? Like, or I guess another way to say my question is, what motivation is there for a family to come to law enforcement and have confidence that there will be action taken?
Good question. Each agency is different, and I'm sure that everywhere you work, there's good employees and bad employees, right? And everybody has good and bad. So it's really, you don't know all the time. You might get somebody that's going to be a very good employee and somebody that's not going to be a good employee. So it really comes down to that agency, and the same thing with the agencies, right? It all comes down to that. I can tell you that most agencies that are not equipped with this, they usually try to send it off to somebody that is equipped to do it, and they usually try to run with it. I can tell you here in Jackson County, we work every single case, and we will work it until it's done, and we will not finish it. Unfortunately, we're getting more and more inundated, and we're getting to a point where we're going to have to make a decision, either put more staffing to it, or we're going to have to prioritize and not work all the cases. Currently, right now, we do work every single case we get. Every case that comes across my desk, we are assigning it and we are working it. Some of them get done really fast. Some of them take a couple years to get done, but we will finish and investigate every single case that comes across our desk here. I hope that answers your question.
We have about 5 minutes left, so we'll take maybe 2 more questions. This is Curtis of Epic Project, who's going to respond to 2 questions ago.
I wanted to respond to the gentleman who asked why kids are so mean to each other. I've been working in youth suicide prevention for the last 15 years, and the way kids learn is through modeling. They're mean to each other because they see us being mean to each other, and they see it on the internet. So the damage that's being done isn't just by perpetrators, it's by cultural norms that teach them how to behave with each other. So if we want to see that kind of stuff change, then we need to change on the internet and in each other's personal.
I think there was a question over here.
We got one over here first.
Oh, okay.
Hey, thank you guys so much. This is, I think, needs to be out there more. So a colleague and myself are working on a presentation very similar to what you just showed, based upon all different inputs and whatnot, and we're creating a type of roadshow that could be replicated for schools. And we started it because my kid's school came to me asking for input, not knowing where to go, hearing from their base of parents, what do I do? I send my kid to their room with their cell phone. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know anything about this. I don't know where to go in and turn off location services. I don't even know how to unlock their phone. Anyways, all of this crazy stuff, right? And we're trying to get this presentation set up, and we're talking about, like I said, a type of roadshow, bringing it to other schools. My question is, why is this not being shared with parents in schools? Like, I don't understand. I'm a parent, and I'm a parent working in an agency, and I'm only hearing about this stuff because we're actively digging for it.
Yeah, that's a
So
good
I'm
question.
just curious, like, is it a capacity thing?
I think it's an invite thing. So if a school calls us and wants us to speak, we will speak to that school. We will go do it. I have done in local school districts, I've done in classes for every class. I did it 1 year, every single class, all through the grades. I taught every single one. But it's a thing that we need to be invited for. And I know there's other agencies that are competing for that time as well. So I know that it's there and they do it. We just haven't been invited. I know that every once in a while we've talked to other schools and talked to parents groups. So like we do outreach and we do speak like this, but it's not into every single class, every single student like you're talking about. We've done it one time, and that was years ago, but we have not been called back to do it.
I think it's also interesting, we're at a time, and this is anecdotal, but we're at a time frame where we're generationally divided in that those that are parents weren't raised with children or weren't raised with devices since they were children, as where their children are now. So it's kind of like we're learning together what this new reality is. And so I think a lot of it is that people, I mean, I would assume everyone in this room, that's not something we're thinking about is how we can exploit children. So it's not something that's in your state of reference. And we've all had so much else going on in life that that's something that I think is shocking to still a lot of people that this is happening.
I'm going to add something. When it comes down to it with our own kids, it comes down to just being involved in your kids' lives. Almost every single one of my victims, they usually have no parent involvement. It's either because their parents are basically don't care, they're in drugs, they're not involved in their kids' lives whatsoever. And you also have the single parent that's working 3-4 jobs trying to support their family and they're not around. Nothing against those parents that are trying to support their family, but they're working trying to support their families and they're not there all the time. Be involved with your kids' lives, talk to your kids. My kids hated me when I asked them, what did you do today? Tell me about your day. They hated it. Why are you talking to me? Next, all the time. But you ask those questions and be there. And my job, I get called out a lot. I really try to make sure that I make their events and their activities if I possibly can. I've been out on homicides where I went to their activity and then left and came back to the homicide. It's about being involved in your kids' lives. Be that parent. Be that thorn in their side. What did you do? What did you do? Tell me about your day. And being involved in them. That's the key right there.
I happen to know that at least 5 of Detective Bohn's families are here. I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot for that. Thank you, audience, for all these great questions. This will be our last question.
Former teacher, former sheriff's kid, and I just don't think kids are as aware of how much trouble they can get into. I hope we can get into more schools and make them all aware. My question just was, what size of staff do you have? And because I know money's short everywhere, how do you go about handing these things out when they come into you?
There's 2 of us, myself and Homeland Security Investigations, and then OSP will help out with some cases and Medford will help out with some cases. That's it. We don't have anybody. I can tell you, I don't know where, it sounds like you're a legislature or something. I can tell you in the state of Oregon, they only have 2 investigators for this job, for the entire state. Luckily, the state has just passed a law where they're going to be tenfolding that, and they're going to be starting to have more help combating that. Hopefully the governor will sign that, but it's in the process of moving and expanding it. I hope you get more. Thank you.
Yes.
So do I.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.